Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar, How Individual Contributors Become Great Leaders. Today is all about empowering new managers for success. It's a topic that we hear about often at Velocity. I'm Abby Mood. I'm the marketing director. I'm just popping in to introduce our hosts, and then I'll come back at the end. If you have any questions or anything throughout, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll monitor them there. And yeah, I think those are the only couple of housekeeping items. But if you want to drop in the chat and say where you're from, and Kelly, yes, I'm in Denver, but we've got Eagles fans here, so I'm assuming you're talking about the Eagles and not our Birds model. But either way, you're in good company. So on that note, I will pass it off to Joe and Ryan. And then, like I said, I'll pop back at the end for any questions. So if you have anything throughout the presentation, just drop it in the chat. We'll make sure we get to them at the end. So Joe, Ryan, it's all you.
Love it. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you so much, Abby. And, I got to say, Kelly, even though I'm not an Eagles fan, I was very happy the Eagles did win the Super Bowl. That was a very good thing. So I'll even get on board with you. Go Birds here.
Yeah, we all want the Chiefs to lose, right? So, yeah, for sure.
Exactly. No Chiefs here, right? Sorry if there's a Chiefs fan on the line here. But no, we're excited to talk about empowering our new managers and what that really looks like and how ICs, individual contributors, become great leaders. But we want to start off by saying, what was all the stuff before that? How did we even get to this place? But I'm Ryan Payne, head of our leadership and development department. Very excited to talk about this topic. And Joe, why don't you introduce yourself? And I want to talk about a couple other things about you.
Thanks. So Joe Whitty, I'm a director here at Velocity, and helped entrepreneur, started 5 different companies. Was also in the military and army, and did one tour overseas. So I learned a lot. And basically, this all comes from me. Ryan and I talk a lot about leadership philosophy and management, what works, what doesn't, and like all the things we screwed up as managers and leaders, and sometimes still do. So Ryan, your thoughts, like, what are some things that you messed up when you were a new manager?
Oh my goodness. The list could go on and on here, Joe. And you're right, though. We learn our best from failure. Failure is what I call the first attempt at learning. But let me say this, I thought one of the big things, if I explain change logically, everyone's eventually going to come around, right? That's just what people do. If it's logical, then yeah, I'll get on board with change. That never happens. Also, if I delegate, everyone's going to listen, right? But also, how do I not burden my team with extra work? Do they see delegation as extra work? Those are a few of the things that really popped into my mind when you asked me that question. But back at you, Joe, what are some things that you struggled with?
We're going to dive into more of this later, but I think the number one thing I thought is that it would be easy, right? Because we always look at whoever we report to before, like, oh, they're terrible. They don't know what they're doing. When I become the manager or boss, it's going to be so easy and I'll get everything right. And man, did I just not get everything right. So yeah, we'll look a little bit more into some areas.
Us,
Yeah, for sure.
We're just so intelligent that, yeah, no matter what Joe and Ryan say, I'm on board. Yeah.
That's right.
So we fall into those traps, but let's keep on going here. So I want everybody on the call, so everyone put on your thinking caps here. I want you to reflect back when you were first promoted to become a manager. And I'll say this, and if you haven't become a manager, that's okay. Do think about maybe what you'd be thinking about as you go down your journey. How long was it until you felt competent and confident in your ability to be a manager?
Throw that up there, right? I think it's interesting that, as people are reflecting on the question, hopefully you can see the poll in there. I indexed on I think it's going to be easy. And then over time, it took time for me to figure out it wasn't hard, right? I think other people maybe start off as like kind of terrified, but usually we start to learn like all the different areas that we just hadn't even considered that make it so difficult to get other people to do what we want them to do. And I think one kind of phrase that resonates, which is, it's hard enough to manage our own crazy, but we got to manage other people's crazy too, right? And suddenly there's we realize like, oh wow, like, and it's not like everybody's the same.
And I love that, Joe. And in the chat, so we have one, I think one right away, one a few months, and then there's a lot of I'm not there yet. And that's okay. I'd say I've been leading people for 15, 16 years, and I'm still not there yet. There's things I can continue to learn from that process along this journey. Man, if I could go back just 3 months earlier, I would have done this a little bit differently. And that's okay. These are the healthy conversations we want to have. So if you haven't seen the poll, go ahead and put your response in that chat. We'd love to hear what everybody's thinking, where you are right now, where you're going to be going in your future. All right. So there's a little bit of competency and clarity, but I want Joe I'm going to pass this over to you to have a conversation here.
So it's funny as I know, as we think about where we are on this journey and where, if we're promoting somebody to be a new manager, or even reflect back when we were a new manager, you have to realize is anytime we're doing something new, we're unconsciously incompetent. We don't know, right? We've never done it before, nor should we be expected to do it before. If you grab me and say, hey, Joe, can you go do brain surgery today? I'm like, give it a shot, but I have no idea what I'm doing. And it would take me obviously years and years to be competent in that. So we call that, like, this is the 4 phases of competency that takes like what it takes in order to become really good or proficient at something. And the first phase is you're unconsciously incompetent. You don't even know the questions to ask, right? So the dangers that senior leaders run into either with new employees or new managers is we ask the question, hey, do you have any questions? And they stare at us blankly, be like, no. Either for one of 2 reasons. Either they don't know enough to know the question to ask, or they're afraid to acknowledge, I don't know exactly what I'm doing, or I haven't run a meeting before, something of that nature. So they're like, well, they didn't ask any questions. I guess they're good. And we walk away. And then guess what happens? What happens, Ryan? They start making mistakes, right? A mistake happens. They have an employee that's challenging. Their report isn't done right. They're not running meetings, whatever. Think of all the things that can go wrong as being a manager or leader. And then they make a mistake, and then they become consciously incompetent. Like, oh, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do that. Right? Now, maybe they could have gotten training, read a book, listened to a podcast, and they become aware. So we can become aware of our incompetence in many different ways. But usually they become aware, and then hopefully we provide the background support, coaching. Maybe they go do some research and then go to fix it. But now they're consciously competent. They have to really think about how they go and do and change things until they do it on a regular basis, in and out. Oh yeah, I had employee who wasn't doing what they're supposed to do. Why? Let me dig deep and figure out why that may be. Let me talk to them about this. Let me coach them through. Let me educate, train them, give them the tools, give them the resources. And then next time they have an employee who doesn't do that, they've been through this 2, 3, 4 times, multiple loops around the sun, and they're good to go. Then they become unconsciously competent. It's just a second nature. So for the challenge is that when people have been doing something for 30 years, they forgot what they remembered. We forgot what it felt like to be a manager on that first day, right? So this is kind of the phases that we go through that we think we can help people through this to expedite that process. So no offense to the person says, hey, I showed up first day and I knew how to manage. Either you had really good management training or experiences in your life that led to that, or you're brand new and we'll get some new challenges thrown your way in life. And then you realize like, oh, I still got something to learn.
Absolutely. So in the chat for me, if everyone can get a little active in there, what do you think? What percentage of new managers actually have formal training right now or have had formal training? Throw some numbers in the chat for me. Any guesses? The percentage of people, of managers that I've haven't had any training. 15%, 35. There we go. Got some 30. All right. We're pretty close. We're pretty close. 60% of new managers have never had formal training.
Isn't that crazy?
Most of them have never had formal training. It is crazy. Why is that? Why is that, Joe?
I think my thoughts is we fail to recognize that leadership and management is a skill, right? It's assumed because you're good at this technique, whether it's sales, coding, you know, pilot, surgeon, that suddenly that translates to knowing how to manage and lead people.
Mhm.
And it's not. Like they're two totally different skills. They combine. So the people promoting them are like, oh, they're really good. We're short on time. We have a space here. It's time for them to do it. You're promoted. And we kind of throw something on people and expect them to execute at a high level.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We were great at what we did before, so I know I can be great at managing people doing that same job. But it's a very, very different job. And most of us don't even feel that we have the skills to do this. So these are just things that are happening in our brain right now that, it'd be really nice if we had, hey, you are a new manager. Here's your playbook. Go execute on this playbook. But as we see on the screen, most of us don't ever receive that playbook. What does that look like? What do we need? What are the skills that we should be thinking about the most as we start to lead people? Just things to be thinking about. And Kelly, I love that too. Lack of resources. Yeah, good stuff. So when we really think about this, what happens when we put somebody, responsible for other people and we don't give them the proper tools? Anybody in the chat, say something. What actually happens when we don't give them the proper training or tools when they're now leading people?
Ryan, let me ask you, did you ever promote somebody that wasn't ready? Or like what happened when you were a new manager? What were some of the things that went sideways in the issues? Kelly,
I'm glad you asked me that. Yeah, I'll start with the first one. So have I ever promoted somebody and I didn't give the proper tools? Absolutely. Unfortunately, I should say. Unfortunately, I was guilty of this. And then I hired them. So now they are leading people. I didn't have this toolkit. They didn't have all the skills needed. They were fantastic. And this is back in the day at writing estimates, but they didn't have the ability to talk to people. And everything that people were in there, failure, attrition, the attrition skyrocketed. That's probably the biggest thing that I saw. That turnover on that team went to a higher number that I didn't even want to see. And I was not proud of to have that.
Yep.
Incompetent managers equals employees not reaching their true potentials. Absolutely.
Our audience is totally nailing this, right?
Yes.
But you're taking somebody who's theoretically, right? Can we all agree we should never promote somebody that's not doing their job well, right? Like, by the way, I've stopped people in executive coaching who went and promotes and somebody who's slightly underperforming because they've been there a long time. I'm like, you can't do that, right? Like, only promote excellence if you want an excellent team. And the light bulb went off. They're like, oh yeah, just because it's a nice person and they've been here 7 years and they're doing better does not qualify them for a promotion. So putting somebody who's like a good performer, taking them out of one role and putting them in another role, you probably go to the next slide, Ryan, too, is now we leave that one role open, right? That we have to put somebody else in there. There's no assumption that you can put somebody else in there, and putting them in another role they may or may not do. So now we have two challenges. And what everybody has hinted at too is like now we put them above. If they're not good at leading other people, now we have frustration below them. Their peers may be super frustrated too if they don't know how to communicate, engage. Their new supervisor, theoretically you, if they don't know how to run the team, is going to get frustrated. And guess who's mostly frustrated? Them, right? Because most people know when they're not doing well. So there's just a massive, as Kelly said, trickle down effect of challenges if we don't prepare people, set clarity and expectations to put new managers in place to succeed, because that's really our responsibility. They don't succeed, it's our fault. I think we forget that. Like, it's not their fault. It's our fault because we didn't prepare them.
And we're going to get to how we kind of talk about this in a little bit, but I want to talk about one more thing, Joe. You have a good story or thing or thought on A players and B players and C players. Do you mind kind of giving that thought?
Yeah, sure. So, I saw something someplace that, like, listen, as leaders, our objective should be to build a team of A players, right? People who high performers, they want to do well, they want to take ownership, they want to solve problems, and they want to grow. It's just kind of wired in them to some degree, and they're hungry for personal development. And then you get like the B player who's pretty good, they don't want to get too uncomfortable, and the C player who just wants to do enough not to get fired. The reality is that A players don't want to work with C players, and C players don't want to work with A players because they make them look bad, right? So in order to attract A players, we have to be an A leader. A players know what A leadership looks like. And they're going to get frustrated if you're a B leader or C leader, and they will leave as a result. And if you promote a B player to become a B leader, now you have a trickle down effect. The C player will want to work with him. The D player will want to work with him. The A player won't. So it's really all about like developing A players to become A leaders in order to have a culture of excellence, if you may. And if you don't, like as Ryan pulled these stats up, here's basically what happens, which is high levels of attrition. You've got leaders who feel comfortable in their certain skill set, employees who quit because they're like, I just don't want to be here. I like what I do, but I can't work for this person in this environment. But when we get it right, we invest in people, the results are just tremendous. Like it flips it around. And it's
And we find
very
it very,
doable.
Yeah. Well, one's very doable. It's very interesting too that, as we just said on the previous slide, 60% of new managers have never had formal training. And how is it? It's very, coincidental that 60% of new managers fail from the first 24 months.
Probably not an accident,
It probably isn't. It's something that we need to do, and we need to do a better job as leaders is training. And you're going to hear this word a little bit later, training our new managers how to properly lead people. But let's kind of dig in a little bit deeper, because there's some things thought. Now, when we just promote somebody, not if we promoted the wrong person, I'm not saying that, but there is an effect that this has in our company, or an impact when we just have a promotion or we're promoted ourselves. How does this really have an impact on the whole organization?
Well, I think we covered a lot of this, Ryan, to some degree, as far as like people quit, they leave, peers get frustrated, the boss gets frustrated, but it certainly has like an impact on the culture. By the way, it doesn't happen fast, right? You don't promote the wrong person and then suddenly within 2 weeks you see all these problems. You're like, oh, it's very evident I made a mistake. I need to get rid of it. It's usually a slow erosion, and we hope it gets better, but it does start to trickle down if we make enough of these bad promotions, or I won't say bad promotion because it's really on us to identify the right talent and develop talent. And so we're not bringing somebody on board. It does cause issues. And there's a term for this, right? I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the Peter Principle before. It's something that came out in 1968, thereabouts. And the concept is basically that people get promoted one level above their competence. It's kind of a joke, but it's not a joke. It's real. If you think about like, hey, Joe's a really good salesperson. Let's promote him to be a sales manager. He's a pretty good sales manager. Let's promote him to be a sales director. Man, he's not a good sales director. That's where I tap out. I don't move any higher. And if that happens across the whole organization, hit the next slide, Ryan. Everybody gets promoted one level above. And so therefore everybody's relatively incompetent, right? If anybody's been in the military, I know we got some people on the call who've been in the military. It's kind of like the military structure to some degree. And so kind of the concept is, how do we help people get better before they get promoted and make sure they understand what they're getting into as a manager, right? It's not just a reward, financial and title. There's a responsibility that comes with that promotion.
There's too many people out there that also say, I'm just being promoted because that's the next step in my career. That's the next step I have to do. Not generally because they want it and know what this entails, what they need to do to learn how to be a great person. It's just, or a great leader. Just, hey, this is my next step in my career. So having a great IC path, individual contributor path, is very important to keep great people engaged. And it might not be the leadership journey.
100%, right? I think like if you look at like maybe like a police force, like they've got the sergeant route where you lead people in the detective route, right? Or you can be the best neurosurgeon in the world and not really have direct reports. So I think sometimes finding ways for people to be great individual contributors and subject matter experts is just as valuable as being a people leader.
Very much so. So Joe, what assumptions did you make as a new manager that turned out not to be true?
Yeah, and then I'm going to turn and ask you the same thing, Ryan, because you've led at some stage more people than I have. I think you led 250 globally at one state, or in states, and I had like 100 in some capacity globally. One, I felt like people would do what I told them to do. Hey, because I tell you to do this, that they're just automatically going to do it, and that we could have direct conversations. And that I could just tell them once, like, oh yeah, this is what you need to do. And suddenly they would get it and understand and comprehend, which is completely not true. I thought it would be easy. I thought I could just have conversations with people. I thought that I could just delegate stuff all the time. and like, just be the finger pointer guy. And then I thought people would just like me and trust me because I'm their leader. And it's just 100% not true. So for you, Ryan, when you were like a newer manager, what were some things that you had to discover that you're like, oh yeah, this management stuff's going to be easy, that suddenly you realize is not?
Yeah, to me, one of the biggest ones, and I still think it rings true in many organizations, is everyone understands their goals. Everyone knows
Mm,
what we're trying to accomplish. I
yeah.
take over a team and I start talking our high level, okay, our goal is to be the number one in the state. And they're kind of looking at me like, what are you talking about? I've never even had this conversation before. I know it's the 3 metrics I'm responsible for, not this overall big picture. What? And, it was interesting. Once I started diving down that path, people are hungry for it. They wanted to
Yep.
understand how they contributed, how that fit into the overall big picture. But my assumption is people knew this, and
Yep.
they were already thinking going down this path. Not that I needed to make sure they understand where this journey is, where the company is going down. But I will say this, it wasn't true. But once I found and unlocked that, it was really how we started accelerating our targets, accelerating what we wanted to do. Because if you can make someone feel like they are part of the bigger picture,
That's
it's
right.
easy to get a lot more out
They
of
know where
them
they
and
fit
make them
in. Like,
want.
oh, I'm an
Exactly.
important part of the team, right? And so, to your point, Ryan, something as simple as
Mhm.
communication to our team, that we just like, hey, you tell them once on a meeting, you assume everybody listened. Well, if they're anything like me, like Mr. ADD guy, they're half listening, or I send an email, they're going to read my whole email. No, they're not. They're not going to read email. Just like most people on this call don't read the full email in full context and understand it. So learning how to be really deliberate with things like vision, impact, and just do it ad nauseum is a skill that we need to learn. So what are some other things? Like, I go to the next slide, Ryan. Like, I know we made a list of some stuff, but I'd be curious here. If anybody wants to add on the chat, what are some things that you guys as new managers made an assumption about or had a misconception that like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that this was not true. Um,
One of
and I
my
think,
favorite on this list, Joe,
yeah,
long hours plus hard work equals good results, right?
right,
I'm
right.
just sitting here, I'm putting in that 60 hours, our team's going to be awesome.
Yep.
Nah, might
I
not be
think
the
even
case.
I think even the one before it, which is like, man, I am the best salesperson, therefore I will be the best sales manager. And if you've like have different districts or regions, maybe somebody else who's the number 3 salesperson is a great sales manager. Well, I'm better than them because I'm a better sales manager. Like,
Mhm.
it's a different job, right? Like, so part of being a good manager is how to go from being a star to be a star maker, how to develop, how to listen,
Yes.
how to support, how to know everybody's individual needs. So I think that one jumps out at me. And I'd also say that like I do most of the speaking. Shocking for me, right, Ryan? But when I would get on meetings, finally, when I figured out I needed to have meetings, which is crazy, I was be the one who's just like, oh, I need to tell everybody what to do, what's going on. And in fact, I needed to shut up. I need to shut up and
Yes.
listen,
There's
right?
some really good stuff in the chat, Joe. I want to make sure we get that. And of course, I'm telling Joe, shut up and listen as I'm cutting them off to make sure we get to some of the stuff in the chat here. And Kelly, my assumption is that everyone is aware of the company goals or individual goals. Yeah, sometimes we don't even know, or they might not know. And we assume that they should understand this. And then Demi, I do not need to be the content expert on what my direct reports are working on. That took me way too long to figure out. And that one is
Yep.
super, super critical. We don't need to
Yeah.
be the expert. And honestly, we shouldn't be.
Right.
If we try to be the expert in too many different areas, that can cause a lot of problems when we just listen to our team and who
Yeah.
are they, what do they need, how can we support them on a leadership
Support them.
level.
We need to know the right questions to ask. We need to know enough
Yes.
about what good looks like and how it impacts everything else, and it impacts the goal. But we just need to know the right questions to ask and how to support them. 100%.
And then David,
Um,
the one size fits all motivational techniques. Can I talk on that for a little bit? That is
yeah.
beautiful. And, we talk about reward recognition. What does that really look like? And I'm going to bring up a term here, what I call blind recognition. And if anyone's ever heard that, go ahead and chime in the box. But I will say there's half of the population, maybe over half now, that blind recognition is a very bad thing. What does that mean? It's if I said, hey, Joe, great job. Okay, well, for what? What did I do great at, Ryan? Thanks for saying great job. But there's so much of the population that needs to be this is exactly X, Y, Z. This is what you knocked out of the park. You keep doing this, you're going to be a freaking rock star for us. Be deliberate about what that is. And it is going to be very different for each person. For David, it might be, you know what? Let's have a private meeting or a quick email. Great job. For Joe, it might be, let's bring him in front of the whole company. I want every single person in this room to see how great Joe did. So those little things, those little techniques are super, super important. But remember that thing of blind recognition, because it can be a detrimental thing if you use it the wrong way.
Yep. Spot on. I'd say like one that, so there's one more on Ryan, which I think is really big, which is I should know all the answers. And I think as a young, overly prideful guy, until like life humbled me and I went through a lot of challenges and made a lot of mistakes, I think this was big for me, which was like, oh, I'm the boss now. Therefore, I must be better, or I know all the answers, or at least I need to pretend. Here's the other thing. I need to pretend like I need to know the other answers, right? So prideful guy may think they know the answers. Somebody who's a little insecure may feel like they have to pretend like they need to know all the answers. And I've learned enough now in these stages like of life to be like, it's okay to be like, hey, we're figuring this out together. We're a team.
Yes.
I got us. We're gonna be good. We need to should be confident and competent. But I'd love to get your input on how to approach the situation. And then we're going to make a decision and we're going to make it happen. Right. I think there's a difference of like having to pretend like we know the answers.
Super powerful there. And I want to bring something else back that Joe said, because he kind of went through it fast. I don't want to gloss over it. To me, it's something so important. I don't know if you heard him say, our job now, once you're leading people, is to be a star maker, not to be the star anymore. And that concept, if once you see that click in a manager's head, it completely changes their thought process. Because I guarantee you, if you make star maker, or if you make stars on your team, you yourself will do just fine. I have not found one time where a team full of stars and the actual person, the leader, is not doing well themselves, not being successful. So it's just a mindset change. That if it's not about me anymore, it's about making stars on my team. So I just want to bring that back up, make sure we hit that one home, because that's pretty important. All right. How'd you feel?
Remember that day? Do you remember that day, Ryan?
I actually do. You want me to talk about it?
Yeah.
So, this is important. Talk about how we felt that very first time we were promoted to a new role, or to, becoming, okay, now I'm leading people. I think it was joy. A lot of joy came into my mind, but then I was like, oh crap. This is a lot of responsibility. So my first time leading people, it was a team of me, 0. Then I went to 7 people overnight. And I was super excited, and I thought I knew exactly where I was going to go. And then I looked at my new roster of the people that are going to be on my team, because it was a new area. So I had to actually move to a different spot. Man, I've only been with the company for 3 years, and there's 4 people on my team that have been there 15 plus years. And 2 of them, 25 plus. So how the heck, why are they going to listen to me? This person's been in this company just at the 3-year mark. And I probably don't have the expertise they do. Oh, no, I really don't have the expertise that they do. How am I going to manage this group? So it was the full range of emotions that was going through my head. And then, you know what? I don't know if I can actually do this. I'm not sure. I might be a little bit of an imposter here.
So I've got a funny story. It's kind of like a little microcosm. So, I got introduced to leadership doing ROTC in college, and mostly worked on squad tactics. So like practice being a squad leader, and I got pretty comfortable with it. And then we went and did like a big group exercise, and they're like, "Hey, Whitty, you're the CO in charge of the So I went from like squad. I don't know if I'd even done platoon to in charge of the whole company for this big mission, and I was like, I had no idea. I was freaking out, like this massive adrenaline rush to my head, because I'm like, I don't even know where to start. Like, I don't even know what to do. And like suddenly people around me started to take pity on me, like, hey, you probably should do this. And it was just very, very uncomfortable, because I had never done that before. So it's a bit of a microcosm of what happens when we put people in positions when they don't know what to do. They feel, if you go to kind of the next slide, Ryan, they feel like imposter syndrome. Anytime we do something we haven't done before, it's totally normal to feel imposter syndrome. Kind of a funny story. I was having lunch with a guy, David Silverman, who's the co-author of a book, kind of sub-author of a book called Team of Teams, written by General McChrystal. Well, after McChrystal retired, he called David, Navy SEAL. McChrystal was a 4-star general, highly esteemed, and was like, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do in my life now that my military career is over. I'm like feeling insecure. A 4-star general who had mastered and done an amazing job in Afghanistan is feeling a little imposter syndrome. Far be it from us or our people not to feel a little imposter syndrome. Of course, we're going to feel it. Anytime we experience something new company, new job, new role, there's always a little like, do I have this? Until we do it and we're like, yeah, we got it, right? So one thing I want to encourage our listeners to is like, remember that your people may be feeling this, or they may index the other side, be overconfident. I totally have this. Like, you haven't done this before. You may not be as confident as you should be, right? And so the way we can challenge this is to eliminate confusion. I would say confusion's the enemy of progress. So if we provide certain phases and steps, which Ryan and I are going to talk about next, then we can help them overcome this faster, right? It may not be immediate, but maybe instead of taking a year to year and a half of feeling comfortable, they can get there in 6 months. And some of these components require, I call like mechanisms. So kind of, for example, we know we need to communicate really well with our team, which means we need to have meetings. Most people haven't had meeting training. So people are like, oh, meetings are a waste of time. Yeah, because you're running them wrong. Don't stop having meetings, learn how to do them better. Or I've also heard the, hey, performance reviews, total waste of time. Nobody pays attention. Guess what? Because you're doing them wrong, right? Organizationally, or in your department, or you yourself are not doing performance reviews well. That's a mechanism. When it's done properly, right, then we get a better outcome. Kind of like if I go to the gym and I don't do anything, I come home and like, yeah, gym's a total waste of time. I'm not getting in shape. Yeah, Joe, because you're sitting around like eating Doritos and watching TV when you go to the gym. You're just doing it wrong. So I think when we build those in place for our people, we give them a system, if you may, then they can elevate and escalate faster as a leader that builds better relationships and solves a lot of those challenges that everybody shared before about attrition, frustration, and a lack of performance.
I love it. Well said. And before we get into some of the taxes that we're going to be talking about that have helped us throughout these careers, things that we've learned over the many experiences that we had, I'd love to hear if anybody has anything in the chat they'd love to put in tactics they've used that can help, a newer manager be confident or competent in their new role. So we're going to dive deeply into this in 1 second, but I'd love to hear anybody else's just ideas that they've had, things they've used in the past. Throw it in the chat for us that you're like, no, this has been extremely helpful for everybody that I've coached, worked with in the past to become a better leader in their role. Any thoughts here?
This is so good. So just for a little context, Ryan, I'm going to brag about Ryan for a second, was at Geico, and they call him Mr. Fix-It because he'd go into cultures, a support culture that maybe were broken, and in like 1 to 2 years, he could turn it around and fix it to be high performing. So Ryan and I, I was really curious. I'm like, all right, well, what did you do? Right? There's clearly a pattern on what you did. And I'm coaching companies. I'm reflecting on my experiences, things I got right, things I got wrong, more wrong than right. Companies we're working with. And just really, we started to look at what is the pattern of success that needs to be consistent in organizations to have them operate well. So again, like I know, Ryan, if anybody wants to share, like what are things that you guys think are critical for managers to do in order to make sure their team functions at a high level? But we started to compile this and kind of take note, time started to take shape and validate it. And we landed on really 6 things. And the first 5 are we handle kind of the complicated, like steps that you need to get in order. And the first one is management foundations, right? Like, and this is really just knowing yourself. We talk a lot about DISC training here. And if I didn't realize that, like on the DISC training, if everybody knows it, like I'm a DIC, which means very direct, shocking, a little more outspoken, gregarious, social, but I also do like things in order to some degree. But my S, the steady supportive, is not my default. I know, respect it, and need it, but we need it. But anyways, management foundations, mindset, communication. But the next one is standards, which is, what does good look like? You may have that
And
in
real
your head.
quick, before you dive deeper into that, Joe, Kelly, exactly what you put in the chat here
Yep.
is what we're talking our standards portion, right?
100%, right?
Clear
Yeah.
mapping out of what those responsibilities are. So back into it, Joe.
Yeah, no, Kelly, you hit it, right? What does great look like? What does it look like for the company? I.e., what's our vision? What's our mission? What's our values that we operate by? We're going to put those in writing and not just put them in a drawer, but also for the individual department. Here's where we're going this year, this quarter. And for you, Joe and Ryan, I need you to show up and do this every day. And this is what great looks like. And here's the KPIs that are going to help you know when you're succeeding or not succeeding. And shockingly, we don't have enough of these conversations, and we operate, this is confusion, where they show up and like, I guess I'm going to do this because I think it's what I'm going to do, or I really like doing this because nobody's telling me otherwise. And then this frustration starts to occur. So we develop standard operating procedures, role clarity, job descriptions, and then
Role
policies, as Kelly
clarity.
mentioned in here. So yeah.
Role clarity is I think one of the most important too from the standards portion. Because there's so many times we hire someone, you give them a job description, and when do we ever talk about the job description again?
Yeah.
Who knows, right? Sometimes it's
Yeah.
never. We don't bring that back up when we're having a yearly review or quarterly. We should be saying, okay, this is your job. Yours is where you're exceeding, you're not exceeding. We don't dive into that role clarity, your job description enough. Surprisingly, I'm sure maybe it's not surprising. There's many places and organizations who don't have a job description, or you
Correct.
get one and you're like, I'm not doing any of this on my day to day.
Right. Exactly. Your role has changed so much, or even you get promoted, right? Sometimes you're like, hey, congrats, promoted. You're the manager of these people now. And everyone assumes because you've been in that seat as an individual contributor that you know what it means to manage. Hey, well, when do I send in reports? What about performance reviews? What about like handling whatever, all the different people stuff? And nobody updates and says, hey, these are all the things that you need to do. And let's evaluate, figure out which ones you feel confident in and which ones you don't, which ones you need training to get people up to speed on those. So that's kind of like the standards. And next we talk about our systems, which is, it could be a meeting. What type of meetings? How frequently do you have these meetings? With whom? What are the outcome of meetings, right? Meeting is just one example of a system. Performance review is an example of a system. Uploading things in software. Hey, after you close that sale, Joe, you need to take that and put that into Salesforce. And here's how you put it into Salesforce so that we can capture this information, so that we can remarket, so that the account manager can do A, B, C, D, E, right? Like if Joe's the best salesperson ever, but I'm not following systems, I'm doing my own thing, right? We're not operating together, and that's problematic. So Ryan, what are some things that you had to do as far as developing systems in your world and past experiences?
One of the biggest ones is meetings. I know you briefly touched on meetings, but not really in the systems part. But what is a meeting, and what is an effective meeting? And really laying out to our team, okay, we're going to be meeting one-on-one, right? I think when you're looking at meeting structure, I had leaders who are leading other people. So I'm demonstrating a one-on-one is every single week. Here's our structure that we're going to be following every single one. So we can have, when we get up to accountability, so we can have true accountability. So it's really making sure every single person is on board with our meeting structure. What should the cadence of our meetings be? And not just the one-on-ones, but all of them, because time management falls into this systems part as well.
Right.
And meetings are a
Yeah.
massive part of time management. If you don't conduct or have the right meetings or get out of the ones you don't belong in, your time management's really wonky. And we need to have time. Our time is one of our most precious commodities, so we can do the things above this ladder, which are the training, accountability, and coaching.
Yep. So as we think about, Microsoft 365 and other tools, a lot of that will also fit in our systems as well. So kind of stepping back, like, hey, who are we? Do we get the right people in the right seats? Then we create the standards, then we create the systems. And now guess what we're going to do? Now we're going to train people to what the standards are and how to do the system so that they know how to do it, right? It's not like, hey, Joe, here's your laptop, go sell, good luck. And then we wonder why one person sells really well and the other 5 are floundering because we don't have systems and standards and training to do that. Ryan, you were really big on training. Talk about how you invested in training and how some people thought you were crazy for doing it and how it changed everything.
Absolutely. I'm extremely passionate on this bucket here of training. And to me, it's what catapulted our team to those areas that Joe was talking about earlier. So when you think about training, I'll talk about my journey when I first took over 7 people, and I was very scared, didn't know what to do. I made a commitment. And I said, you know what? Even though I don't have all the skills, I'm going to learn from them. So every single Wednesday, we're going to meet in person, right? This is a long time ago, so it's easy to make this happen. My team was local. So every single Wednesday, we got together. I presented their results to them. And then we went over 1 to 2 topics of what did we want to learn. And then over another year, this transformed to me. Every single Wednesday, I'm still presenting. But now I had one of the people on my team start to present a topic. And when you start to present a topic, training on whatever, maybe was it negotiation? Was it customer service? Those are all different things we were talking about. Now they are learning to a competent level of how to manage people or understand this. Okay, that was the small scale. Now my team grew to 40 people. So how do I get 40 people with, Kelly, what you're saying, with little to no budget in the same room together? I can't do that weekly. That's not going to work. But you know what? With little to no budget, back to what Kelly was saying, I found a location. It's amazing what you can do when you just talk to people who said, you know what, you guys can use our place for free. What, for free? We can just come sit there once a month. And guess what? We did that every single month. We came together. So I had to provide some pizza. I was able to get, a little budget there. And we had the same thing. Okay, now my team grew to 90 people. Can I really do that once a month again? Can I find a location that can house a team of 90 people and have that training? Let's go every other month. So we decided 6 times a year, same thing. Everyone's going to come together and we go over the results, go over the company goals, go over what their actual metrics are, make sure no one's confused. And then we train. So now I'm training my leaders to actually give a training course 6 times a year. And what this eliminates a lot. So now, does anybody on the team have a different message? No. Everybody on the whole team heard the exact same thing. I can't have one person say, hey, Ryan, this is not what I heard from the grapevine of all the leaders going down this line. Everyone heard the exact same message. Yeah. I'm going to give you one more. My team went to 250 people. Now we're talking the whole state of Texas, going from El Paso to Tyler to Amarillo to, if you understand the geography of Texas, 250 people, we still made it happen. Yes, the budget. And I was getting pushback from the senior vice presidents, everybody saying, this is not in our budget. You're not going to be productive. You mean you're going to take 250 people out of production for a whole day? Yes, I am. Or 2 because of travel. But this cycle of training, the first one, very hard to get people on board. Then they saw, wow, there is value in what we're learning here. There's value in what we're trying to provide. You want a culture of training, a culture of learning.
Growth.
After that first one.
Just continuous growth mindset. Yeah. And they're building relationships. Yes. And then you get peer learning going on from that, right? Yes. There's so many even sub lessons that are being done when you do good training, by the way. Again, good training is key. So,
good training.
Yeah.
And then they started saying, hey, Ryan, when's the next one going to be? And I said, you know what? We're going to do this every 2 months. And once you start hearing those questions, you're building not only a culture, a team, a lot of it. We had the best associate opinion survey in the whole company at that time. And then we're talking about Geico here. And so these little things just grow this path. And now everyone wants to be on the board. And it started to get to the point where I just came and I got to observe. I wasn't the one creating this anymore. The team took it. They ran with it. They were excited to, going down from the director to the manager to their supervisor and down to the team. Everyone wanted part of how can I be maybe on the next one contributing to training. And guess what? We did have some fun too. But it just took that time to get the buy-in, understand we're going to do this very cost effective. We actually became more productive over time. So then my bosses, the senior vice president, like, okay, I'm fine now. You're still productive. You're actually more productive than you were. So I can get behind what you're doing here. So this process of training needs to be ingrained and needs to be consistent. You need to get your team on board, and you have to be part of that initial process too.
Love it. And so the next step up is accountability. And we hear so many different organizations or C-levels. It's like, can you help us with accountability? Nobody does what we want them to do, right? And they're frustrated. And they want to go straight from like step 0 to accountability. And the reality is you can't really hold your people accountable if they don't know what great looks like. You haven't given them a system to follow, and you haven't trained them on it. Other than that, you're like jumping through that. If we go through that steps and we've been very clear, then we can go to the accountability. By the way, accountability isn't just sticks, it's carrots too, right? We want to reward people. Hey, you're doing a great job, love it, recognition, pulling people aside. And so often leaders either over index one of two ways. Either they don't have direct conversations at all, they avoid it, and they get frustrated. They're like, oh, I'm just going to let them go because they just don't know what to do, right? Or they jump on people too fast, too hard without giving that clarity. But if we go through the first steps, the foundation, standard, systems, training, we've given that to them. Now we make leadership, it's not subjective anymore. If somebody's doing the job or not doing the well, it's subjective. We've given them the tools to perform. Now we can hold them accountable for the tools we've given them because they're making choices to either do it or not do it. And the first step, which is the last one, is the coaching, right? To say, hey, Ryan, I gave you this task. I trained you on it. We talked about it. I noticed you didn't do it last week, right? Do you want to share, like, tell me what's going on? What prevented you from doing that? And have a conversation, because those first 5 steps are the complicated. It should cover about 80% of what we're doing, but what's going on in our head and maybe at home and our fears are the complex, which is why we have to have those one-on-one coaching conversations. So the first step of accountability is always coaching. And then what I like to say is increased directness. Brian's like, no, I totally understood. I just kind of forgot. I didn't do it. Great. Well, please don't forget. It's really important you do this, right? The next week he doesn't do it. Guess what? Now we increase directness. It's like a verbal warning or whatever you guys need to do, up to the point that some people need to be terminated because they're not following the values, they're not doing their job, it's not the right fit. And we know that if you have somebody who's not performing, it erodes the whole culture and causes problems, right? Ryan, you're really good at coaching. I think it's one of your superpowers. And I think you're probably more patient. Actually, I know you're more patient at it than I am. Talk about how coaching and being patient in that process has helped change some of your cultures.
Coaching takes time. And one thing we say at Velocity is coaching is a privilege. And that might seem weird to say, but everyone doesn't deserve that bucket of coaching. That's a whole nother discussion. But I want to say that great leaders don't just manage, they do coach. You do have to have that bucket there. And learning how to provide support, how to mentor, how to guide employees through, and I would say that one-on-one coaching framework, that feedback is how we develop our team. But when I really think about what coaching means to me, it comes down to one phrase. And some of us know this, some of us have asked this, some of us have probably no clue and are like, what are you going to say here? And until you discover what the definition of success is for everybody on your team, can you properly coach them? And I want you to ask yourself, and sometimes you need to keep digging to really figure out what that definition of success is, because it's so different for everybody on your team. And I'm not just saying when you wake up that day, what is success today? No, what is your definition of success? And that is going to change from when you first start working somewhere to when you have a family to when you're looking to retire. It's going to change throughout your career. But once you dive in and say, you know what, I'm going to commit to understanding this for each person, now you can go down that journey of coaching in a real effective way. And you loop in that definition of success every single time. Is it they want to at 4:30 clock out because they have to go coach their kids, right? That's the most important thing. They want to get home. Are they looking for that promotion? And again, diving in, and it could be peeling back a few layers to really understand and be patient to figure out their definition of success. To me, that's then the ultimate thing that has helped our team rise to the top, because you're not only teaching them or coaching them, they're seeing how much you care. And when you continuously
that's what I was going to add. I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to add, like, the foundation of all this is your people need to know that you care about them. Because if you're being direct with them and say, hey, I want you to get better because I want you to keep your job, I want you to do well, I want you to get a promotion. Sometimes we care more about people in their job than they do until they kind of figure it out. It's just strange, but it's reality. But people are receptive when they know that you care about their personal well-being. Love it. So I think we're going to open up to questions now. Love if everybody has questions for us, pop them in the chat. Hello,
I
Abby.
Hello, I have returned. Yeah, if anybody has any other questions, you can put them in the chat, or there's a Q&A tab. Yeah, just throw them in the chat. We'll get to them. But I have a couple that were submitted pre-webinar. So as a new manager, what do you do if you inherit a struggling team?
Oh, Ryan, you're the expert in this, right? You're Mr. Fix-It. So what were some of the first things you did with teams that were underperforming? Be like, oh, like, look at this mixed match of like the bad news bears I got. What do I do?
No, I love it. And that was one of my, honestly, my favorite things. I would much rather inherit a team that was failing, struggling, than inherit a team that was the best one in the company. It's just how I operate. And the first thing is really just saying, okay, why? And it's just really trying to figure out why they struggle. I'm going to give you one example. When I moved to Las Vegas and I was taking over this whole region here, it was a team of 40 people. And I think they were 24 to 29% turnover. And in 2 years, it was down to 4%. And this specific team, they had 6 supervisors on this team. And I just wanted to have the individual conversations. So my first thing, which I think is a missed thing nowadays, is observe. Observe.
Mm-hmm.
I want to just come in and sit with each supervisor on that team for more than a couple hours. It was a couple of days, and just observe. I had to come in, see what was going on. What are their skills? Where are they lacking? What do they like to do? What do they not like to do? And really try to understand them as a person and as an employee. 2 different categories there. I wanted to know that person, the personalized aspect, as well as what they thought was important at the company. So then,
Ryan, the whole thing is you're spending time with them. Right? You're spending time with them, and it's not just like, hey, let's go through your projects, and you leave. It's like, I'm going to sit, spend time with them, observe, and
there was
listen
no
along the way.
sweeping changes right away. It was observe, watch, understand, be with. And then 60, believe it or not, 60 days in, now we're starting to talk about change. Now I'm starting to think of, okay, there was unfortunately one of these 6 that probably don't need to be part of the team anymore. And you have to make those tough decisions. Now, there were some areas where we were able to keep everybody, but this one we weren't. And removing one person and inserting someone who cares can really change a whole team's
Huge difference.
Very quickly.
Huge difference, right?
Very quickly.
Imagine you have a basketball team of 5 players, and like they throw me on the Lakers tomorrow. It's not going to go well, right? Joe Witte and the Lakers. I'm only one person. The other 4, we got LeBron, we got these other people. But that one person puts you down, and it becomes, by the way, it's also your time to deal with it. Plus, sometimes it's toxicity. It's just absolutely critical. Yeah, I love it.
It's nothing that can be fixed quickly. It is, are you going to invest the time in your people, invest in what you care about, invest in what they care about, and that is them. People want to know that you are there for them, to serve them. And once they feel that, then we start that whole process of the training. And that's what moves it along quickly.
I think you're right. Like, I think you have to just stop and observe, because sometimes you get the people who are going to kiss your ass like the first couple of days and just be like, and you're like, they are oftentimes not the best people. The people who are frustrated and annoyed, but maybe they have a right to be frustrated and annoyed, but they're really good people. And they're like, oh, here it goes. Another new manager who's going to mess things up again. And then you have to kind of build that trust with them and be like, actually, they're really good and they're competent. They know their stuff. Let's give them the confidence. So you have to be mindful that first impressions aren't always the truth, and then get to the truth and then figure out, okay, here's our truth and how do we sort it out? So people either over-index by making changes too soon or way too long. Like a year has gone by and they've given 14 different chances. And it's just not getting better. So that makes sense.
One more thing. One of the most powerful messages I ever received in that time when I was sitting with people was, you just sat with me more than my previous manager did in the 6 years combined.
Wow.
And I was only there for a couple of days. And that's how powerful. And so my team was spread out, right? That's why I was spending the time. But it was just something very interesting. And I said, you know what, from here on out, I want to make sure I am with everybody as much as I can, because that's where I need to be.
Yeah. I love it.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a good stopping point, because we just have a couple minutes left here. And just to share with the audience, you may or may not be familiar with Velocity, but we're a consulting firm. So we actually, Joe and Ryan, actually train new managers and help organizations with all of the things that we just talked about today. So we're offering a complimentary call with one of them to talk through your training process. It's not a sales call. It's just complimentary for them to talk through your process with you. You can ask them any questions you might have. You can get their feedback on things that you're doing. It's really just supposed to be helpful. So if you are interested in a complimentary call, I just threw up a poll, just click yes, and then we'll send you an email and get that set up. But regardless, thank you all for hanging out with us for the last hour. If you're watching this on replay, we hope that you found it all useful. Joe, Ryan, any parting thoughts before we end this?
Yeah, I mean, Ryan and I, we nerd out on this stuff. We can talk about it forever. So we're happy to hop on a call with anybody who's with us today and just brainstorm, talk about what we're doing. Like I do executive coaching and happy to discuss it. And we know all of you guys are really busy. And so we're just grateful for you guys joining us today and learning something. And I'm sure you guys have some thoughts. So yeah, share with us more if you've got other ways we can help people get better.
I appreciate your time very much. It's a pleasure talking to you today. And as Joe said, I'll just say ditto to everything you just added.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your week.